Well, after the initial devastation of having them taken and sent with their dad, I, for one, was faced with the reality that Jenny and Coley were now living in the house with their dad, where things were horrific, and there was nothing I could do about it. So I started trying to reach out to Colin to set up visitations, because the case manager said that I was entitled to have as many supervised visitations.
We're going to object to the hearsay as to what the case manager told her.
I think I understand your latest sustaining of the objection about hearsay related to explain conduct, but this is squarely within that. She is trying to set up visitation because she was told she was allowed to have visitation. So I do believe that fits within that exception.
I believe our harm is also very low, where the caseworker already testified to that fact.
I don't think the caseworker testified exactly to what she is saying.
I believe she testified that she was allowed to have visitation, so I think she
testified that visitation was up to the defendant, not that she had an absolute right to visitation. Visitation was at the right of the defendant.
I believe you're correct. Was she saying something different just then?
Yes.
I think we're splitting hairs. She wasn't prevented from seeing her children. So she could have visitation. She was allowed to have visitation. If it's up to the defendant, she's calling him to try to set that up. That's exactly what she's testifying to. Trying to act like she's saying something completely different is just not true. She is saying she's calling the defendant to set up the visitation because she was allowed to, and he is the one who has custody, so she has to go through him.
And she, this bitch testified that she was not entitled to visitation. Any visitation was to be done through the defendant based on his determination. Not that she had an absolute right to visitation.
That is a misinterpretation of what Ms. Mission testified to. She did not say she was not entitled to visitation. That is not what happened.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you'll have to remember what the DFACS worker, case manager testified to. I'm going to let the witness go ahead and answer.
So, I mean, I can rephrase.
No, he overruled the objection. So,
okay.
You were, I guess, where we're at.
There was no restrictions to me having visitation or seeing my children other than it needed to be supervised. She did say that I needed to schedule it with Colin. So I started reaching out immediately because, you know, I wanted to see them as much as humanly possible. And it immediately became apparent, which I knew it would, that he was not going to communicate with me whatsoever. He had blocked my phone number, and I know that because I checked it the next time I saw him and had access to his phone. He basically refused to not only not let me see or speak to my kids, but he refused to speak to me himself. So my children were living somewhere where I knew was a nightmare for them, and now I can't get any sort of updates or any sort of contact with them. I tried to get my mother to reach out. She was met with the same obstacles. I reached out to Tamika, the case manager, asked her for her help, and the only thing she offered was transportation to see the kids. I told her, I don't need transportation, I need someone to facilitate some sort of communication between me and their father. And it just never happened. I couldn't get any help from anyone. some point later in the month, I called in a wellness check with Barrow County just so I could have someone put their eyes on my children to make sure that they were still alive. And I also knew that they had still, none of them had been enrolled in school, so I couldn't verify through school that they were still breathing. And so then, I never did end up getting any kind of communication or updates or anything like that.
And what did that do to your mental health?
I basically had a complete nervous mental breakdown. I think as any good mother would. My kids were and still are my entire world. And to go from being in constant contact with my two younger children, for sure, to nothing. I felt like they had been kidnapped almost. I was just devastated. I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping. I was desperate. Desperation is a good word for what I was feeling.
What did you do after that?
So that led to, it was right after Halloween. I basically decided that I was going to drive to Barrow County and just physically go and knock on the door and say, "What are you doing to me, to our kids? I want to kind of just see them." And so I was not in my right mind at the time. But I went to my mother's house and I told her what I was going to do, and I wanted her to go with me. Just to be another person, to be there to observe what takes place, and to be there, to support or take the kids, to McDonald's or something if I needed to talk things out with Colin, just to be there in general. And she knew that I was not in my right mind, and so she said, "No, I'm not driving you to Wander. I'm not going with you," which I had not expected. I never thought in a million years that she would say, "No, I'm not going with you." And so I then was in a situation where I still am going. I'm still going to go. But now my mom knows I'm going, and I wasn't going to, drag her and force her into the car or anything. But I knew she would call Colin the second I left the house. And, then I'd never see the kids. It would be a wasted trip. So, in my messed up mind, somehow I decided that I'll just take you to a chair, and then I'll have a friend of mine come over later to let you loose as soon as I have had time to make it to Wander and see the kids. This is obviously completely irrational and inexcusable behavior. But again, I was not in a rationally thinking state of mind at that point. So that's what I did, and drove to Winder. I actually got there on Friday, but it was late. It was dark, and I didn't want to go knocking on the door, late at night, and it, be made out to look like, oh, your mom's, banging on the door at all times of the night. So anyways, I slept in my car basically Friday night with the intention of going to talk to him Saturday morning, which is what I did. I tried knocking on the door first, and nobody was coming. It was kind of early, especially for a Saturday. But I'd been there before, so I knew which bedroom was his. So I walked around to his bedroom window, and it was open. He sleeps with his bedroom window open a lot.
And are you referring to Colin?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's okay.
And so, but I didn't want to scare him, so I just kind of tapped on the window. And it was dark, looking from outside into the bedroom, but I could kind of see, the outline, and I could see that he sat up in bed. And I kind of knocked again because he didn't say anything, and he said, "Who is that?" And I said, "Coley, you know who this is? I'm your wife. I would like to see her talk to our kids, please." And then I saw little Coley jump up, excited because I was at the house, and he immediately tried to take off running because he wanted to come out and see me, and his dad told him, "No, stay right where you're at." And so I said, "You've blocked me from your life for the last month, and that's not fair. I would never do that to you. I'd like to see the kids." And he said, "You can't, this is not right. You can't do it this way. You have to call and set up a time, and I'm calling the police. Get off my property. I'm calling the police if you don't leave right now." And I immediately started crying, and I said, "Please don't do this. I've been trying to contact you for a month. You know that, and you know what you're doing, and it's not fair. It's not right to me or our kids." And but he didn't care. So he said, "Get off my property or I'm calling the police." And I knew he would, so I turned around and left. And I drove just down the street to the Dollar General and just sat there, just booing, not knowing what to do next, because I didn't want to make any kind of scene or anything with the kids there. Not that I would make a scene anyway, but I didn't want to give him the opportunity to make it look like I was acting crazy or anything. So a couple hours later, I had actually brought some of Jenny's electronics, some stuff that she used with her iPad and like an Apple Pencil and stuff that I wanted to leave with her because I knew she would want them. And so I decided to drive back to the house to just drop that off, which I did. I drove back, and I didn't even bother knocking on the door. But I took all of her stuff and set it on the roof or the hood of Colin's truck. His work truck was there in the driveway. And turned around to leave, and I ended up keying the side of his truck, which is the first time I've ever done anything like that. But I just had so much just resentment and anger and I wasn't gonna do anything in front of our kids, and, I was physically walking past the truck, and I had my keys in my car, in my hand, and I just like happened. I was just like, and so I scratched a couple words in the side of his truck, and then got in my car, and I didn't try to go back after that.
And were you eventually arrested in Barrow County?
I was the next day. A couple hours, I guess, after I had keyed his truck, he was outside and he saw it. And so he called and made a police report.
And, Your Honor, at this time, I'm going to introduce in the evidence State Exhibit 169 and 170, which are incarceration records for Ms. Gray from Barrow County and then also Ben Hill. They just established the period of time that she was incarcerated. When we're displaying it, we've redacted her personal information so that it is not viewable from the screen.
You said those were 169's records from Barrow and 170's from Ben Hill?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Hobbs, any objection?
No, sir.
169 and 170.
Thank you, Your Honor. And these are self-authenticating, so I'm just going to go ahead and display them for the jury. So we're going to start with Barrow County. The records show, Ms. Gray, that you were incarcerated from November 6th to December 22nd in Barrow County. Does that
Yes,
sound
ma'am.
accurate? Okay. Before you left Barrow County, did you plead guilty?
Did I what?
Did you enter a guilty plea before you left the Barrow County Detention
Yes, I
Center?
took a plea.
And Your Honor, at this time, I'm going to introduce in the evidence State Exhibit 208, which is Ms. Gray's plea of guilty to use of a license plate to conceal identity.
No objection.
All right, 208 submitted.
And so ultimately, you pled guilty to the misdemeanor use of a license plate to conceal identity, and you received a 12-month sentence. Is that correct? Or for
No, I used my first offenders for, there were several other charges besides the license plate.
I guess what the sentence actually has is just the use of a license plate to conceal identity. And then it has it as a 12-month sentence. And then during that 12 months, it shows that you were barred from Barrow County. Is that accurate?
That was one of the stipulations, but it actually, they made a modification to that.
And that was after September 4th?
Yes.
Okay. So once you pled guilty in Barrow County, did you then get transferred to Ben Hill County's detention center?
I did.
And was that related to the charges against your mother?
Yes.
And are those actually still open?
They are still open.
Sorry, at this time I'm going to go ahead and display your incarceration records from Ben Hill. Okay. It shows as you being there from December 22nd to April 12th of 2024. Does that sound accurate?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you were released on April 12th. Is that why were you bonded out? Is that why you got released?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what were you supposed to do upon release from Ben Hill on April 12th of 2024?
With regards to like what my parents wanted me to do.
Yes. Where were you going to go?
Okay, so I had found a rehab facility, and I was going to go there.
And what rehab facility was that?
I forgot the name of it.
It's Promise of Hope.
Promise of Hope, yes.
And did you ultimately go to Promise of Hope?
I did. Yeah, I stayed home over the weekend just to visit with my parents, and then I went, I think, on that Monday.
Okay. And so, Your Honor, at this time I'm going to introduce an evidence, State's Exhibit 171, which is Ms. Gray's attendance records at Promise of Hope.
No objection.
All right, 171 submitted.
And Your Honor, these are self-authenticating, so I'm going to go ahead and publish them to the jury. So it indicates that you were at Promise of Hope from April 16th of 2024 until July 6th of 2024. Does that sound accurate?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, in that time frame, while you were incarcerated and then also in rehab, what kind of contact did you have with the defendant?
Most of that time period, most of the time period when I was incarcerated prior to rehab, I had no contact with him or the kids until maybe the last month, at which point he started doing FaceTime. They're not actually iPhone FaceTimes, but video calls. Was able to do those.